We're now in our breaking news. This video we are seeing really for the first time. It happened about a half hour ago. Los Angeles police firing rubber bullets at an immigration rally. Some protesters apparently were hit. CNN's Ted Rollins was on the scene when it started. He joins me now. Ted, what can you tell us? What happened?
Well, Anderson, it was a dramatic and chaotic end to what was otherwise a very peaceful day here in Los Angeles. Like I say, about a half hour ago is when it came finally to an end. It started about an hour and a half ago with a small disruption with a group of protesters. Police tried to move them out of a roadway, and it just escalated from there. We were caught right in the middle of it. And we were just trying to cover and figure out what was going on. And the one side of MacArthur Park here, which is really in the shadow of downtown Los Angeles, there were a few thousand people here. This was the end point of a day-long rally. There was music. In fact, Roger Mahoney, was up on stage just within the half hour before all this started. Police started to move and disperse the crowd and fired rubber bullets, dozens of rubber bullets into the crowd. People went running and fleeing, trying to get out of their way, and it didn't seem to be any warning. Police just sort of took ground and moved forward and started firing on this crowd. We talked to one individual who was hit by one of these rubber bullets.
The people, they wanted a peaceful march to demand full legalization and amnesty. What they're doing, they're psychologically torturing the people so that they can go ahead and think this is a police state, right? And all we wanted is just to walk pacifically demanding full immigration rights.
You want that? He's waiting for a lieutenant. And you can see the wealth that individual got from the bullet. This is what these bullets look like. They are actually soft, but they're coming out of, obviously, rifles and traveling at an extraordinary speed, and a lot of people were hit by these. There were a lot of children and families at the rally and in the crowd, and I got to tell you, there really wasn't a lot of warning. I did talk to a sergeant from the Los Angeles Police Department, this gentleman right back here. He was going to do an on-camera interview. Now they've declined to. He did tell me off camera that an officer on a motorcycle had been touched or hit and may have fallen down, and that was the beginning of this, but it is unclear what sparked this, but clearly a very dramatic and chaotic end, like we said, to what was otherwise a very peaceful day of rallies and demonstrations here in Los Angeles and around the country.
Hey, Ted, I don't know if you still have that rubber bullet. I've never actually seen it. How soft is it? I mean, can you actually sort of squeeze it, or?
Yeah, you can squeeze it fairly easily, and it is hollowed out in the middle there. You can see that. So it's a soft bullet. Clearly, no one is not lethal, and no one was going to be in grave danger. However, there were a lot of children in the crowd. In fact, we saw one vendor, a hot dog vendor, who had his little daughter with him, who was trying to flee and grab his stuff, and it was very difficult for him to do so. But that said, we didn't see anybody with any injuries, and these aren't lethal. Still a very scary time for the folks in the crowd, at least a lot of them.
And just so we're not blowing anything out of proportion, do you have a sense of numbers of people involved? Like how many people were in the area? How many police were involved? You know, any sense of, how many people were trying to be shooed away?
Yeah. Well, you can see this group of police officers here, and then up along the street there's another contingent there, and more coming in here. And this, I would say, was only about half of the officers that are deployed. There's another contingent on the other side of the park here, so a lot of force on the police side. A few thousand people when this all started, probably in the park, maybe a little bit less. But many people, and you can imagine that's what escalated this. Now, to defend the police department, because they won't talk to us, but they clearly were doing something. They were trying to gain ground, and they were systematic in what they were doing. They were firing the bullets clearly to scare people and get them out of the way, and they knew what they were doing in clearing the park. Why the communication wasn't there, they didn't have a bullhorn, why these people had to be frightened is unclear, and hopefully we'll get some answers from the LAPD coming up.
Ted, appreciate the reporting. Before the rather surprising, or chaotic perhaps is the better word, end to this afternoon's march here in Los Angeles, it was peaceful. Today's marches across the country were far smaller than they were last year, but those who attended insisted the smaller numbers should not be a sign of weakening resolve. They said it should not be about numbers, but about action. A few lawmakers want to give illegal immigrants a clear path to citizenship.